Hey, everybody, it's Southern Fried Chat again. I'm here with Aeon Reborn, who has made multiple websites for the SPX6900 community, including SPX6900mosaic.com, which is really cool. You can add your X profile to the mosaic, and it makes a very cool looking picture of everyone, a collage almost. And also SPX6900arcade.com, which is kind of fun. It's kind of like Snake, and you eat the companies. It's cool. And SPX6900listings.com, which I think he just recently made, which helps us to promote getting SPX listed at different exchanges that don't currently have it. And finally, which I think is one of the most interesting things, is he's helped SPX peel a private company in Europe to start a SPX 6900 Treasury, the first ever. So that's really awesome. So you want to introduce yourself besides all the nice things I said?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, and thanks for the for the intro. So I'm on Twitter. Like, my name is Federico, known as Aeon Reborn. The reason for the Reborn is that I used to have a, a profile back in a few months ago. It got shut down, so I had to spin a new one. But yeah, it's my journey with. Should I talk about, I don't know, the journey with
Yeah.
crypto?
I'll start with. I think this will kind of lead us into all that. What got you into crypto in the first place?
Right. So I've been in crypto. I've been kind of knowing about crypto since 2014. Originally, there was had this friend in New York that wanted to create a credit card backed by Bitcoin. We're like early days of kind of Bitcoin.
Right.
So use a card to pay and use Bitcoin. So we kind of tried to do that. We made actually a prototype, but that kind of never got into a real product that could be usable. But since then, I at first I didn't kind of research the concept too much beyond this idea, but then kind of came back to it in 2016 with the kind of early ICOs and Ethereum, especially Ethereum. And then I was actually doing other things. Originally I was kind of in TradFi, so management consulting / TradFi, and then I left there and I built a software company. And so I was doing the software company, and then when we solved it, and that was end of 2019, I decided I just wanted to do primarily crypto. So those were the very early days of DeFi, like 2018, 2019. I remember I did a call with Aiden, at the founder of Uniswap. That was late 2018.
Wow.
And because basically what really, like, within crypto, where I went completely crazy was when I discovered Uniswap, right? There was like this notion of Ethereum, and to me, I mean, like, coming from the outside and doing other things, I wasn't really super into it, right? Before DeFi, basically, right? So there was this idea of blockchain and smart contract and DAO, like DAOs. But it wasn't really, I didn't quite understand what the entire thing was. When I saw Uniswap, I was like, this is crazy, right? This is going to change, because pre-Uniswap, you didn't have a way to, you had to go to sexes and so on.
Sure,
I discovered Uniswap, I remember I spent a weekend on Reddit, reading all things. And at that point, it was very hard to kind of like provide liquidity to Uniswap, right? So it was easy to use the tool to swap, but as a LP, like, it was very hard to know, am I making money? Where should I put what kind of pairs should I like put the money in, and so on and so forth. So I built like an Excel spreadsheet, like a Google sheet, which then became a product, was called Liquidity Folio. And basically, that's how I got to know a lot of founders of DeFi, because back then, I think the DeFi community was maybe 1,000 people, right? Talking 2018, 2019. And so this tool was ultimately used in those years by a lot of the early LPs of Uniswap, and then Balancer, Curve, and SushiSwap, and so on and so forth. And so then when you know I kind of sold the company I was doing, then I went all in with this product, which then kind of morphed into something else, and then also angel investing. So I've been doing angel investing in Web3 since about 2020, so for about 4 or 5 years. And then basically this is from 2018, 2020, 2021, but then from 21 to now has been very hard to find new things to get excited about, right? So in DeFi, I think if you look at DeFi, right, not every product, it was game changing, but we had a few game changing things, right? Like AMMs, we had so the DEXs basically, right? So we had the lending markets, like there used to be Compound, Aave. You had early days of perpetuals, DYDX, GMX, and then all the others that came like up until hype. But then basically the past 4 or 5 years, both as a user, right, and as an angel, it's almost like we saw the primitives like in those years, and now we're seeing derivatives, like all derivatives, like the number 57 perpetual DEX, the number 41, lending market, so all kind of incremental stuff. And yes, and so I was really getting like bored, right? Like a bit frustrated about like what do I do, like, and then I think it was so when I discovered the video Murad's presentation, that's kind of how it kind of hit home from different points, right? One, because of the novelty. We say, interesting. There's something going on, right? Like it is actually very interesting. Like it's not derivative number 48 of some BS. This is actually a new phenomena, right? It's very, and also like having done all this angel investing, like a lot of the premise of what Murad is saying, especially in what he said in October last year, I found this stuff very aligned to with what I saw, right? So all you have all these projects doing the capital formation via venture capital. You know that all the FTV growth is happening in the shadow in the private markets, and I saw that, right? So you invest as an angel, 15 million, then it launched to $1 billion, and like there's zero community, zero fundamentals, zero revenue, zero nothing. And all these unlocks, all this basically extraction, right, taking place. And so, this is kind of how it hit home for me. And then, from there, it was like a gradual, myself kind of buying in the notion of meme coins and the notion of on communities. And that's kind of how I got to, and then obviously with SPX, but like this was kind of a bit the backstory.
Were you into meme coins at all before September last year when he released the video?
Yeah, a little bit, yes, but I think I got them completely wrong.
Sure.
Right. So I had I had some in terms of the kind of the PVE, right? What kind of like they I think would fit this category PVE. Like I had some APUs, I had some ticker Bitcoin.
Sure.
From 20, I think ticker Bitcoin summer 2023, APU maybe 24. I had some, but so first off, like this idea of PvP PVE, it wasn't in the radar for me. Plus. I was thinking I did some research. This was before Murad's presentation about Pump Fund, right? So because and by the way, somebody in March, I think 2024, it was saying, oh, by the way, there is this other investment that you should look at, and then for some reason I don't know, I forgot about it, and that was actually Pump Fund. So when it came out and it got all this appeal, right, like all this usage, I said, wait a minute, like this is crazy, what's going on? And I look, and basically another thing that I've been looking very closely in the past is betting, sports betting. Okay. And so I was looking into Pump Fund as let me find if there is a, positive expected value somewhere, what are the tokens with positive EV, right? But I was completely missing I was completely almost missing 100% of the phenomenon, right? So I was missing it. The pump fund was in and of itself very extractive. There was zero to no community, high time preference. Obviously, with very PVE, PvP in the sense of right not being rugged all the time. So again, I think like Murad's presentation on the one end, it just put in with a nice logic a lot of things that many people were thinking, but at the same time, it shed a completely new light on the phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah.
For me, like the way he put it, he put into words what I was feeling. Like that's I knew kind of what was happening. I didn't necessarily think too much PvP, PvE. And I had some coins, I think, that were PvP, but I didn't really think about it. Just also, sometimes when coins get rugged, there can be a community that can start from it. Actually, that happened with SPX originally. So, he just he put into words in a very eloquent way, and it made it seem more real than what it was prior to it coming out, if that makes sense. I don't know if you felt the same way, but...
Yeah, absolutely. And also... I think it described more as like a phenomena of within crypto, but with happening with society at large. It described more as he put together a framework to see to kind of go past the animal coin or the little funny thing, but saying, look, like this is this is a formation of tokenized communities, and the bet I think that we're all making is this is here to stay, right? I think at this point is it's an investment, and with all the investment you have a thesis, and you have to verify whether the thesis holds or not, and time will tell. But I think there are a lot of almost, to me, like the only thing that I found interesting since 2021, other than this phenomena, is prediction markets. But even if you look at Polymarket, and it got all the usage with the 2024 election, US elections. But if you look at Polymarket, it was actually conceived in 2017, right? So if you take away even like prediction markets, tokenized communities, I think it's almost like the most interesting, if not the only interesting things that is happening in crypto.
And and if you take it to the extreme, Murad's claim is there's coins that offer basically cash flows to some degree, actually producing value, and the tokenized communities, and that's essentially it. And everything else is probably not good. So.
Yeah, and also, like, to be honest, like one of the many truths, I think, like in crypto, like people come to crypto not to, they don't come to buy equities, right?
Right.
If I want to buy equity, I buy equity, right? So they come like to make money, like retail at least. But I think like many participants are large, even like more institutional participants. Ultimately, they want to make money, otherwise they wouldn't come. They want to have fun, like especially retail to some company, and they want to belong somewhere, right? Yes. And this is very true. And so yes, you're gonna have stable coins, and those have like a basic utility. Yes. You're gonna have like cash flow coins, but again, like cash flow coins, if you strip away the narrative, the speculation premia, they will exist, but they may not exist with the same valuation as today. And for sure, has to be seen, like the appeal of cash flow coin per se. Like if you're not worth, 20 million upwards, maybe then I'm not sure people will care so much about the cash flow per se, or at least like when you really start to see cash flow to your wallet, then good luck applying a multiple to the cash flow and see what
Right.
valuation you comes up with, right?
Yeah,
And
I would.
then,
I wouldn't touch it. If I was, like you said, if I wanted equity, I would just buy stocks. So
right.
yeah,
And then you're gonna have and then maybe you're gonna have like, say tier one store value, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's maybe major L1s,
sure.
Ethereum to be discussed. Like many people question, like I'm a bit like Ethereum holder and Ethereum fan to some extent, but like the
Sure.
again, even for Ethereum, many people are to some extent they question is ETH money? Like used to be, ETH is super some money, and then like whatever, like it changed again. So
Yeah.
if you strip away the monetary premium to ETH, right, and
Yeah.
then what are you left with? Like nobody knows like what's the equilibrium. And then basically have meme coins. And I think like another realization that I had is, look, like basically, the best product don't need a token, and the best token don't need a product. And if you look into all these tech tokens, right, ultimately they don't go up or go down in price because of the technology or the product, which are, by the way, vaguely attached to, even remotely attached to,
Right.
but because of the community, right? And so ultimately, they're all kind of memes to some extent, but I think they are very most majority of utility so-called tokens are very extractive type of memes because of
Yeah.
the unlocks. Another interesting thing that I happened to look very closely in the past, especially last year. I don't know if you ever got yourself kind of acquainted with all the secondary markets of lock tokens and so on and so forth. But it's crazy, like when you and I got to touch it like in whatever, like because a company was interested. But basically, you have all these unlocks, right? Unlocks that are coming. Most of these VC projects, they have a lot of lock tokens, right? The
Right.
low flow IFDV, right? A lot of it is unlocked. And so basically, everybody these days, they want to sell you their lock tokens. So there are like platforms to do this, right? Or you can do, I mean, they're all typically OTC deals that you do. And basically, nobody cares about the token, whether it's the foundation, the team, like large angels, like everybody or most of them, they want just to dump. They will dump the token, like depending whether it's 6 months locked or 12 months linear cliff, like there are different kind of conditions. So depending on them, they will give you a discount that says, I'll give you a 30% discount, 40%, which in and of itself is BS, total BS, because like this token, they can do 30% plus minus in a day, right? So what
Sure.
is even and then who buys them? They don't buy them because they believe in the project, but just because they're going to buy them. They're going to so they're going to be long lock tokens. They're going to short the project with perps, in the hope that in the end they gain the difference. They basically lock this discount as a
Yep.
profit, in 6 months or 12 months, whatever that is. So yeah, so they are, to some extent, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, they're memes, and they're very extractive type of meme, right? And,
Right.
and this is something again that I saw, right? But that I wasn't able to reconcile or to articulate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I know, not to necessarily single out one, but I know Celestia was very high FDV, and I know that burnt some people. But
Right.
yeah, it's turned into a game for VCs and founders with ill intentions. It seems like.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, some VCs are. It's not like every VC is,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like, right, but I think it's almost like the entire capital formation that I think will change, by the way, right? So it used to be ICOs, then for because what we're seeing now is the result of maybe 5-7 years of more the VC arc, and then I think to one form or another, like ICO will kind of come back. You see, platforms like Legion, Echo, even like for non-memes, right? But whatever project that is launching, I think today they're looking to. I mean, they start to realize, okay, the community is a major part of this, right? So we can like perpetrate the same model that we've been doing the past 5-6 years. This is not working, and so you're gonna see a different type of kind of way for a project to raise capital for those which are not strictly memes, right? Maybe they want to develop something, but some VCs are not necessarily extractive, but I think like they almost is the entire system that has been built in such a way that there's no other way out, right? So I was talking to a VC, and they they were talking like specifically one project that I won't name, but
Sure.
I was also involved, and they did something crazy. Their product is great. Again, like all the FTV growth happened in the private markets, and they launched at the usual 2 billion valuation these days, and it's not been a down only case, but I was asking, look, like, because they were saying, oh yeah, the token, you can always find a reason why you need the token, right? So like 99.99% is all BS, but you can always find a reason. And I was saying, but look, like if there weren't a token, what would you do? Like, how would you monetize? And we say like, no, listen, like without token, without equity, I wouldn't be like, I need something, right, to to bring back the money. So ultimately, all these tokens are a vehicle, like again, for the most part, for early investors to kind of monetize their investment, and I think like meme coins or community tokens, whatever. I'm not sure they launched, because some of them they launched years ago, right? So even before this was a real problem. But I think to some extent, I can see them as a response to kind of to confront also this this situation with extraction and to some extent even kind of grift, right, in the crypto market.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, and so that's a good backdrop. What was it, Murad, that ultimately did you see the SPX6900 drop on his list? Is that what got you in, or was it after, or how did that happen for you?
Yeah, so I think a reality, at least for me, is that most of the time, and I've been kind of reflecting on this. So the answer for me is like, I saw it via Murad, like I saw the presentation.
Sure.
I even before seeing the list. So the presentation, I watched it a few times. I said, it's hard to disagree with one of the things he said, right? Okay. I couldn't find anything to disagree, and in crypto is good to trust but verify. Don't trust too much. Like we've seen all of it, but I said like it's hard to find somebody that. And I didn't even know about the Bitcoin, like he was a maximalist. It was doing the interviews, like Bitcoin interviews. I said, okay, so I want to, I intuitively trust this thing, but because for one is it sounds real, it feels real, the person feel real. And so I started there, and then I saw the SPX in his feed and in the list. And like I kind of bought some, but with no particular necessary conviction. And that's why I think is almost the life cycle for many holders. Is it feels like that. I think most people will come to these tokenized communities starting from the financial incentive angle, right? Mm-hmm. I think like they can come either from I buy because it sounds like a nice project, like a high potential project, whatever, or I buy because I saw the community and I want to join in. I think realistically, most people come from I want to, I'm looking for some return, something, with potential. I buy, and then that kind of becomes like the funnel, the journey, and most people, I think, like in general, if something goes up, they don't even know what they bought. And then when it comes down, like, I mean, like, if you look at crypto cycle, that's been true for many, many generations of crypto participants. When things go down, say they start, oh, what is this thing, right? What is this thing? Let me check, right? Like, let me check what's happening. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of get more acquainted and get more, either they leave, right? Or they, to some extent, they become like, real participants. And some of them, I think, maybe a few percentage points, maybe 1%, 2%, they actually become active. Because ultimately we have, I think, maybe 50,000, like if you kind of remove the micro dust that you never know whether it's dust, whether the real holders, maybe 50 to 100,000 holders, but I think more 50,000 holders with more than $100 or something like that. And out of the 50K, maybe, I don't know, 1K, 1,000 holders are actually, active massively right in the community. But I think ultimately it's a typical percentage. I didn't done the research, but I suspect if you look at political party or any political movement, you'll see that I think the activation, right, is probably a few percentage points. So it doesn't surprise me. But
that's growing at a rapid pace. Those that are active members. I mean, I've been very in tune with that. And when I first bought in September, I started. I wasn't super active, but it just progressed. But I can't keep up with all the accounts. I used to kind of could, but it's impossible now for me. So that the active part is definitely growing quite substantially.
Yeah, no, for sure. But because the holders are,
right.
And then they and I think like it's almost like you have the way I see it, you have a spectrum, right? Even in tokenized communities, you have on the one hand, you have people that are there just for financial incentives. They don't even know what they bought, right? They found, at this point, they may be found on an exchange, or maybe some people talking about the token, but they buy in with zero knowledge of what's underneath and behind the token. Or on the other extreme, you have active participants in the community, like such as Aeons and people like us. They got involved and they really care. I think and in between you have people, maybe, by the way, you may have a lot of holders that follow, they retweet, they just free.
That's true.
And they don't know. So there is a big spectrum. I think almost like I was reflecting that if you find, thinking more like broader, besides even SPX and like in general, this tokenized communities, in my opinion, if you find that the incentives work for, let's call them extremely speculative holders, it's almost like they will, work at 100x for everybody else, right? So almost like the dynamic and the dynamics and the incentives, if they happen to even work for somebody that is there primarily as a, not even passive holder, somebody that owns the token but has zero idea whatsoever what's going on, then I think, they can only work better for everybody else. And to me, like what I was thinking is that, tokenized communities, they, of course, if you are a participant in the community, it works better because beyond the financial incentives, you also get value out of the community. And in my opinion, depending on the meme coin, you get a different vibe, you get a different value. I personally, like the way I see it, is in the case of SPX, in my mind, the value is primarily having a clean, positive feed. Right, I think like most of us, and I have a few Twitter accounts, and like my whatever official account, it's a poisonous feed. Like it's a crazy feed, right? Like a week ago, you would have sold the bottom, right? With the tariffs, you would have sold the bottom.
I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's the value of a clean feed? I think it's incredible. like because it makes your decision making a lot better, and you don't make like silly mistakes, right? You don't get
Yeah.
carried away by emotions. By the way, it doesn't. It's a bit of a tangent, but
Go
I
ahead.
happen to do some research for a different project some time ago about retail order flows, right? So when like the order flow of retail participants, and you know that, for example, you may have heard that Robinhood is, Spain, it does this paper order flow model, right?
Yes,
So
that's
where
right. Yep.
it sells the order flow to Citadel, and essentially, basically, the bottom line is, uh, like for the most part, you need to do the opposite of like for the most part, retail is always losing money, or is primarily losing money. It has like a negative correlation to prices to some extent, because you should almost always do the opposite of what either you're told to or what the emotion suggests to do, right? So when you see that retail order flow is so sought after because it's very losing. Like if everybody wants to be the counterparty of a retail order flow, because they know it's called very soft. It's a very soft flow, right? It's losing a lot of P&L. Why? Because like for the most part, all the biases, all the to some extent misinformation and emotional loaded information, it makes you do the opposite of what you should be doing. So if you carve out for yourself a feed that is clean, to me, like it has like it's almost invaluable. It has a lot of value. So to me, SPX, besides the mission, the adventure, the
Sure.
hope, it's also like having this solid group of people that ultimately, everybody of us, like we don't live in a vacuum. Like we check X, we want to read something. So if you happen to feed yourself with positive information, with solid view from solid people, that's extremely valuable. The value for something else, like I don't know, an Apu, for example, to me is more like the smile, right? Like you see the meme, you smile. So what's the value of a smile? It's a lot of value, right? Like
Yes.
because it maybe changes, that ignites a spark in you that you were, oh, I don't know, and then you smile.
Sure.
So it may be like, it sounds BS, but I don't think it is. Like I think it's actually valid. And those are the two kind of main communities I kind
Sure.
of follow. A lot more SPX, but
Yeah.
so if you follow the community, you also have that value besides the incentives, and that I think makes all the experience a lot more sticky, a lot more long term.
Right. Right. And that kind of leads into it. I mean, you kind of went through it a little bit, but what got you to the point where you're creating websites, you're stepping it up a notch in the community? What got you there?
Yeah, so it was. I think I kind of got closer and closer with a community. That was late last year, and then since I think January, I decided it's almost like I was led by example, right? Because like almost anything else in life, you see the examples, and if the example is, I don't know, very negative, you may tend to, unfortunately, people may tend to follow that example. If the example is very positive, in terms of work ethic and commitment and effort that people are putting in, then you start asking yourself, okay, like what can I do myself? What if I also do something? And so yeah, so I started actually with the previous account that unfortunately was deleted. I started from the angle of publishing analysis, right? So
Right.
I come from some extent, I mentioned TradFi for lack of a better explanation, and so kind of and this was also to verify to some extent what Murad was saying, right? So because again, like I bought a bag in October 2014, but then I started buying, but then I asked myself, like, I'm buying, but and there were this table with percentage of holders, diamond N-ness, and what have you. And I said, okay, I want to verify this. Let me check for myself. Let me do some analysis. So I did. Also, I don't know if you got across, like, it used to be called, I think the account there is no chart. The account was called There Is No Chart. Whatever, it was.
I don't remember. Yeah.
And anyway, so I really dissected a lot the supply, the demand. I downloaded all the transaction of the token. I did like a very in-depth analysis.
Yeah, maybe I do remember. I don't know. It's been a while, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I started from that. So I was thinking, what I can bring to the table, maybe in this phase, like more in-depth analysis of the dynamics between the holders, the supply, and this and that. And by the way, like when I did this stuff, and this was very in depth, I actually realized, it was true. I mean, when you compare different, and and by the way, another thing that I think was very good from Murad was doing this, almost rainbow comparison, right, of similar tokens, kind of comparable tokens. So, for example, like all the memes of 2023, 2024, right? Instead of analyzing them in a vacuum, saying, okay, how about, I rank them? How about I compare them? And so I did the same. And when you do the same, actually, almost across any metrics that you can imagine back then, but even today, SPX was always coming up like as the, number one, number two, almost across the entire spectrum. And so, so that was the initial contribution. Then the account got shut down, and then I created a new account. And then at that point, I was saying, I had a few ideas for possible, products, websites, whatever. I also come from that angle, right? So I built my SaaS company, and I've been doing like I've been primarily a founder for the past 10 years, always building products and this and that. So, that came those two little ideas for the, the mosaic, like having, because back a few months ago, like there was this photo of all the, when you search for the emoji, like the stock and magnet emoji, the Twitter gives you that list, and people were list, and it was growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So I said, how about we just make this, dynamic, everybody can add them themselves. And so I did that. And and the same with the listing website, where again, like little maybe automations. I think it's interesting to, I think for everybody, and this is something also I ask myself, like, it's interesting to contribute with any almost like unique skills or unique interest or unique special specific knowledge to some extent that we all have, right? So for example, the interviews, I like that a lot, because even think about this, like even in the era of software, like I saw the there's a very powerful cycle when you have basically software, capital, and media, right? Code, capital, and media, and it's a very powerful cycle. And I think like because like traditionally, like you build code to build it, maybe to scale you need capital, and then you combine the media to market it to some extent. And I think like tokenized communities, they almost like embody this, right, natively. So the capital is built, built in almost in the token, in the crypto. So those dynamics are built in. Obviously, I think the code is kind of more replaced with like to some extent the community, or the media is also the community. But then code, I think, comes in when maybe people can bring some code to facilitate either, I don't know, the DCA, or facilitate the spreading the message, or something else. So I think I think like the contribution and some others, some you do the media, I think is very good, like the podcast that the guy's been doing.
Oh,
some people
that's awesome.
write crazy post, right, more philosophical angle. I wish I would, were able to do this. That's maybe not kind of quite my
Yeah, no, I
forte,
think
but
that's great. I mean, what you're offering a definitely a different angle, and it's awesome. So we really everybody appreciates it, and it's really cool. The one thing I will say that would be really awesome, and I don't know if I can message you about this or not. With the mosaic, I don't know if you can add this in, but it'd be really cool if you know how you can like see the images. Could you click on them and it go direct to the profile? That would be cool
sure,
if
no,
you could do.
that's
Just an
not
idea.
today, but but it's definitely yeah, it's easy to do. I was almost I was even asking, even thinking to maybe add at some point some stats. I don't know how many
That would be
eons I don't
cool.
know per week or
Also, if you
that's
could, another thing, this is another. I like the website a lot. If you could press a button on it and like produce a JPEG or a whatever, some kind of
yeah, that'd be
photo,
nice.
that would be cool. So,
That's really nice. That's the idea.
yeah,
No, I'll add it. I'll add it. It's a smart one.
yeah. I
Um,
love that website. It's awesome. I think it also is it's just cool to see, and it's cool that it's growing and it's neat. So yeah, well, I think everybody appreciates that, and I don't think I
yeah.
realized how I don't know if this word's the a giga brain you were. Like I don't think I knew
No,
all
no,
this
no, no, no
background.
big
Like
brain,
it's incredible.
But think about this. I think is, I mean, one of the let's say this. Um, I think to in my mind, and this is also why at some point I decided to pitch SPX to this
Yeah.
company. Maybe we'll talk about that. But
Yeah, yeah. If you
like
want to actually, if you want to go into that, that would be awesome. I think we covered where I wanted to be at this point.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was kind of going like my pitch to them for SPX. But maybe I can add some context.
Yeah,
So basically, I bought SPX myself. I started buying. I keep buying for for a good period of time, and still buying some. But then there is this company that I'm a part of. I'm a shareholder, and the company is in Europe and has been doing basically crypto. It used to be it was born as a custodian for high net worth individuals,
gotcha.
and then basically again like you see in Europe there's all this I don't know if you heard the name, but MiCA, there's this MiCA regulation
I've
which is
heard of that.
basically, and everybody say, oh, like now with MiCA, it's Europe is pro crypto. It's all complete BS. Most Europe and most countries they're very hostile to crypto till this day, and the regulation basically didn't change anything. It's very hard to get licenses. So, anyways, it became very hard for the company to operate in that capacity, and so the company kind of morphed itself into more of a OTC desk of some sort, where basically it's assisting their its historical clients, which are pretty big some big customers in crypto, on making deals, maybe in OTC operations, things a bit that are non-standard in and of themselves. And so anyway, so the company is operational, and it also have a pretty sizable crypto treasury. And
Right.
so I was thinking, I was, I originally I felt it was a bit of a shame that they didn't have any exposure to the Memecoin super cycle thesis, let alone SPX. So it wasn't much of oh, I want to make money off this. It was more I wanted them to have a mini exposure because they said, okay, this is one of the most interesting things that I saw. It would be bad, right? If let's assume this happens, right, to some extent, and they have zero exposure. And so I started to talk to them, and but the problem is like it was hard for them to. So the treasury is very to some extent traditional, so
Sure.
BTC like primarily, and small room for other
We
things, which
pause for
was
just one second. I want to make sure that I'm understanding this. How I might have missed it. How are you related to the company? Or you have a role there, or
no,
what is it?
I don't have a role specifically, but I'm one of the shareholders.
Gotcha. Okay.
And,
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's what
I'm
I
a
was just.
small shareholder, by the way. It's not
Sure.
anything major,
Sure.
but
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
know
That's all. I
them.
was, yep. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I've been kind of working with them in the past. I know the board, and again, like the treasury in itself is pretty not old school, but it's pretty
Sure.
conservative, right? And so the space to buy spot was there was some space to buy spot, but it was a bit limited, and and so we started thinking, how to get some more exposure, and then we came up with this idea: how about we, or let's say, get more exposure? How they were actually more interested in how can we accumulate more tokens, right?
Sure.
On top of what we're allowed to, or comfortable, or even allowed to have in the treasury as a spot holdings. And so we came up with this idea of, how about, we buy SPX6900 options. And so, the company has a relationship with pretty much all the familiar names of the derivative desk that you can find in crypto. And so they said, okay, take a look. And so I was involved into structuring this for them. And so basically it was an interesting experience. So we talked to all the desk. Nobody knew the token. Like two desk,
Sure.
I don't want to name them, but like two desk actually thought we were actually looking for SPX, like the 500 options, right? They said, but like we are a crypto desk, we don't know if we're allowed to sell you, SPX options. So like completely off track. One, which was Wintermute, was happy, but it gave us a crazy price. So he priced the volatility like 400, which, if you're not familiar, it's crazy. Like even like volatility of 100 in most market will be considered crazy. BTC these days, as if you look at the options, that volatility maybe 50.
Gotcha.
Sometimes even lower. So 100 is already pretty high.
Sure.
They quoted 400, and in the desk we went with, ultimately it quoted like 200, which in and of itself is a large number, but we think we thought it was an EV bet, right? Because if the community, and I think this is kind of the rationale of this position for them. The rationale is the meme coin super cycle is happening, right? Meme coin will be the category, at least of this cycle. Within the category, SPX will kind of reach critical mass and will, at some point go parabolic. And this is specific for the option. This kind of move will happen between end of the year and then March 2026, May 2026. So kind of end of year / H1 26. And this last thing was specifically, it's kind of a time limit in this specific case, but obviously when you deal with option, you also need to to put a date to the options. And so we decided to put that as a date for their option position. So when we did that, we structured the operation, and then basically what was interesting to see is that so it was interesting to see that first off we were able to put SPX into the treasury of a company, which again, like,
right, that's awesome.
Yeah, crypto treasury. But also the other interesting aspects of this is I talked to several people in crypto about this, and I talked about them. I pitched them SPX, and I think there is an arc to when you pitch people. It depends. Like if they have a very, like when they describe the brain, whether you have a thin logical barrier, whatever, or a thick logical, whatever. So
sure.
People are more kind of emotional, thin logical. They get it immediately. Mm-hmm. But there are also some people, especially people that have funds, or they've been investing in crypto, investors, whatever. The logic like the logic cortex, whatever that is
sure.
I saw it, especially thick. So it takes time. When they get it, they go crazy. when they get it, I have a friend, and this is something that I hope I'll be able to announce it. We'll see. He has a fund. He used to have also a crypto fund. Now he kind of moved on to invest in really crazy stuff. He's a
Sure.
very long guy, robotics, and uh,
Wow.
but he was a very like it was very skeptical. Then he kind of got the idea, and then he became crazy. Now he wants to invest with the fund into SPX. He also wants to buy some options. So I hope I'll be able to talk about this when it happens. But
Sure.
what I wanted to say is that when people get this, I was surprised to see the interest for the options. So
Okay.
they want the spot, but they also want some options, and it got me to think that for especially for institutional, if we want to call it like this, or at least like
Sure.
more structured capital, whether it's a fund or something else, we they may want some arrangement, whether it's an option or something else, which can be a little more complicated on top of spot, but it looks like there is interest, and people are kind of realize, especially those that are familiar with investing in something new, weird, misunderstood, such
Yeah.
as meme coins today. There is interest, and they just may want some different arrangements. And by the way, if anybody listening to this, they have any interest by people of this kind of cohort, they want to pitch them, or any advice, or any, consider me available, because to share this experience, also like coming from other similar experiences, I'll be happy to jump in and be of help if I can.
Yeah, and I'll include all your socials, and if there's other socials besides your Aeon Reborn account, you can let me know if you prefer those. And yeah, I'll definitely. This is a really good segment. I'll probably just clip this as well and post it separately. Um, yeah, that's incredibly interesting. I got to be honest. When I first saw it, it's like, is this a joke? Is this real? Like, it's so cool. But yeah, that's why
No,
I was like, I got to get you on, because that's
I mean, and by the way, like, we have ideas to do other things of this nature. We'll see where we get with those. But for example, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we'll announce them in due time. I think the question is, first off, like, is this happening? Yes or no, right? So am I talking like not necessarily just SPX, but like
sure.
this meme coin, or this tokenized community super cycle, or
Yes.
tokenized community phenomena? Is this happening? Is this like limited in time? Is this like something irrational that is happening? If the answer is that is happening and is here to stay, and there may need, we may need some more time to know for sure.
Hmm.
And but again, at the same time, if you want to be early, and some investors actually do want to be early, you already have quite a few elements to form a thesis, to judge for yourself. Then I think, assuming this is right, then why shouldn't be like a ETP on meme coin communities, or why shouldn't be like a vehicle for meme coin? I'm sure there will be like initiatives like this, right?
Hmm.
So it's also, it's also very early. By the way, this reminds me really of the early days of DeFi, right? Early days of DeFi, when I built that tool that I told you about, again, like, very similar. I think overall worldwide, probably 1,000 users, right? As in, actually today, like with meme coins, you have a lot more people involved, right? A
Right.
lot more people, right? Order of magnitude. But it reminds me, like, similar to SPX. Right now, you go on Twitter, you maybe have 1,000 people really, really active. You have interviews, like you doing interviews, and back then there was another guy like doing the same thing. Like, it kind of really reminds me of something really early, right? And
Yeah. And I love that you have that perspective. I feel like we have a lot of former Bitcoin maxis, and they have that perspective. You have the DeFi, Ethereum perspective, and I think that's cool to hear. It's a similar thing, but different. But it's you all get the early vibes.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all kind of try to relate this to what what is familiar to us. I think Bitcoin is maybe is more relatable because it has a much bigger belief component, right? Or because like you also have to imagine that early days of Bitcoin, yes, there was the belief, but there was also the technology, right? Like today, like now we're building on top of the idea of a blockchain. Oh yeah, blockchain, a token. You don't even need to explain to anybody. But like back then, right? Like Antonopoulos was writing a book to say, oh, these are the blocks, this is the chain, the basic concepts. So so there was a lot of technology there too, but there was also a lot of belief. Like with DeFi, I think it was more normie friendly in the sense like mid-curver friendly, right? Like it was, this is finance, this is a lending market, now it's on chain. And
I like that you just called yourself mid-curve. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, the way that I see this, I'm a mid-curver 100%. I'm just trying to, but if you're aware of it, because it's
sure you're you're socially aware of it. I like that.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% aware. Like I think like it's to me, I think it's actually harder to see the people on the right. Like the people on the left are more, to some extent, visible. So sometimes you actually need to copy what they do. Like even if it's like, and if you're a mid-curver, it will sound crazy, but ultimately, the meme, I'm 100% convinced of that meme, right? So
yes, the meme is perfect.
Horseshoe, whatever theory, the extreme they touch. So but I think DeFi was a lot more mid-curver friendly, or and so it was a meme, right? It was a meme, but again, like to be honest, there was also like real innovation. Like those 2-3 things was real innovation. So
absolutely.
AMN, right, the DEXs and
you were super early to that real innovation, and now it's not as early, and there's high
exactly.
That it's changed.
So, I think the vibe there, like I remember also Ethereum there. So 2018, like also past the kind of bear market, everybody was disenfranchised, but there was like prices very low. DeFi was happening, right? 2018, 2019. You see like this stuff is coming. You see Ethereum trading at $40, $50, $80. At some point people will realize what's going on, and this thing is gonna go crazy. And it went crazy, right? From the $100 of the COVID or whatever to 4,800 or
something like that. Yeah.
Now, to be honest, like this cycle, like before thinking about the communities, I almost didn't have the conviction on anything.
Sure.
Because like ETH is and besides the question, is it money? Like, is it like like how do you monetize it? Whatever. But beside even that, like, what do you buy Solana? Do you buy ETH? But like without the expectation of saying, look, like there is something happening which is crazy, which back then was DeFi. Let the people realize and see what happens. Like there wasn't this dynamic. I think this dynamic is now today is with the communities. The only place where I see this is like there is something crazy brewing and there's something crazy happening. Let people figure out and let's see what happens.
And I think that's why Solana has done so well. I'm not saying ETH doesn't have a community, but Solana has like a hardcore community, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of the people who are involved in it are it's just a fun community, and you feel like you're early on something and it's enjoyable. That's kind of where I came from too. After I got over my Bitcoin maximalism, because the Bitcoin maxi community is pretty toxic, and you're not really making too much of an impact anymore because it's totally institutionalized. So I felt like I will get involved in Solana, So
the question is, there are multiple things. One is yes, it's true that the Solana is a lot more, let's say, go fast and break things type of mood. But at the same time, I think also the holders are different to some extent. Like the demographic is different. Like also like
Yeah.
the motives are different. Like it's a lot more fast. Being faster, it's easier to buy, to dump, to like not. It's not
I think it's all. I think it's all a meme at the end of the day.
right.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which I think is interesting, like you mentioned, like Bitcoin being institutionalized. That's 100% true, and I think like it's not that like retail won't buy Bitcoin. I think
Sure.
they actually should. Like people that I know that they tell me, oh, how can I whatever get into crypto? Like if they're like now, I'm also telling a few people like SPX, but otherwise, buy Bitcoin, buy it slowly,
Sure.
DCA, but is not the retail that will move the needle anymore, and it's not Bitcoin that can nobody will buy Bitcoin this cycle with the expectation of saying, oh, let me 10x. Like this can completely change the position I'm in, versus it wasn't the case 2017. It wasn't the case even last cycle. Bitcoin I think did maybe a 6-7x, something like that.
Yep.
But
Like that.
I don't think, maybe even more, actually more, I think, because it was 3,000.
Yeah, a little more, yeah.
So it did more. But with diminishing returns, like it's an institutional grade asset. It's a store of value. And by the way, it's interesting because you see how, I think at some point, every asset, like even meme coins today, they start as outperformers, so people will go to them for the outperformance. They won't even understand what they buy. So at the beginning, Bitcoin was peer-to-peer payments, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that.
Right? Who would describe today as today is a store of value? So this is almost like.
And that's why I didn't get it back then, because people were saying, "Oh yeah, peer." I'm like, "What? We don't need that. Forgot credit cards, whatever." Like I didn't get it. I didn't get it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. But what I'm saying is, it's almost like the life cycle of an asset. So at the beginning, people, like, I'm talking about retail, like common people. So they will get there to find outperformance. And then like Bitcoin evolved to become a store of value.
Yep.
Now I think today, maybe you could even argue DeFi, people got there for the outperformance, and then to be seen whether the technology or whether it's, besides the extraction, which it's there, it's very present, it will evolve into something else. Now it's like communities. People get there for the outperformance today, most people, right? Because like it's the thing that has the biggest potential, biggest growth, whatever. And then I think it's to be seen. Like I think will it be, the way that I can picture this is, if it's successful, it may evolve into some sort of store of value, which is maybe for a generation, for a vintage, for a cohort, right? Like also Bitcoin, like it was a store of value for some. It became a store of value for some. It became a vehicle of wealth for some. It's a store of value, but it's no longer a vehicle of wealth the same way for a Gen Z or for new participants, right? So it will be interesting to see whether new participants, maybe this cycle, I don't know, assuming it's SPX, it grows, and then when it's a lot more established, it become a sort of store of value for this present cohort, and then at that point maybe a new vehicle will also start. And so I don't think it's unlikely that generation after generations, to some extent, or cohorts after cohorts, they build their store of value, right? Which is an vehicle of wealth creation.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very true, and that was one of the problems I have with some of the Bitcoin maxis, that they're like, no, there's only one way. There can only be one, and that doesn't make any sense. But it's a very strong one, and it will continue to be strong. But.
Yeah, maybe. By the way, I think you don't need. I mean, the question is like, will the communities get to the level, to the size of Bitcoin? I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe never, right? But I think it's not the point. Like
Sure.
even getting to to a percentage, a fraction, a section of Bitcoin, it's already a big achievement. It's already an enormous opportunity. So
Right.
it could well be that Bitcoin is the institutionalized global almost reserve currency,
Sure.
reserve asset. Okay, but then you're gonna have like subsection of the society, whether it's by generation, by interest. Maybe it's going to be like you're going to have a store of value for the anti-TradFi people, right? A store of value for the fitness people. I don't know if that.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, for me personally, I view Bitcoin as money, essentially. So you could argue it's the ultimate store of value from my perspective. So the way I see the future playing out is ultimately everything will be priced in Bitcoin. It doesn't mean there won't be other stores of value, but that's how I see things going. But who knows?
Right. But what do you think it will be like the end game with respect to these tokenized communities?
No, I think you're right. I think people are going to carve out a section, and that'll be worth something, whether it outperforms Bitcoin. Whenever in the end game, the way I see it, if everything is priced in Bitcoin, it's going to incrementally increase the purchasing value, maybe 5%, which will equate to the technology rate essentially. So whenever it's fully monetized, we'll say 30, 40 years from now, then say 1 year you have I call it a technology rate essentially. So like 5% growth in technology, that's essentially the purchasing value of Bitcoin will go up. Now, your whole goal at that point, which I'm already kind of living this way, your whole goal at that point will be try to outperform just that steady increase of Bitcoin. So, yeah, I look at those tokenized communities, maybe you get early on one that's new, that came out of nowhere, or later on, and even now. And I think ultimately with SPX6900, I think it's I don't know if I don't think it's going to be as big as Bitcoin, but I think it could be substantial compared to Bitcoin, and I think it will continue to gain market share against the Bitcoin for some time. That's how I'll view it.
Yeah, no, I think this too, and again, like the way I see it is like the cycle is people come to an asset, even SPX, for outperformance. Like most people,
right,
like buy the first time because of that. Then again, some people will stay like that. Some people will actually get into the community. Like if you get in touch with the community, most likely you will start getting value outside of the financial gain. So you start to develop like a value exchange, which is like not, which is beyond the financial gain. Now, assuming the value prop, and the value prop again, like think about retail, they want to make money, have fun, belong somewhere. So like assuming the value prop holds, and it's not going to hold forever, right? So even like Bitcoin for retail, right? I think the make money, it's somewhat less of an opportunity that it used to be 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Have fun, TBD, right? Bitcoin, as you said, like it's not necessarily the most fun community that is there. Belong somewhere for sure. Like it's still like sort of a movement, a cult in and of itself. So that aspect remains. But the other two, I think, like they're like it's being so institutionalized, maybe is no longer the first in the ranking.
And speaking of that, what I've noticed, because I used to be really heavy in the Bitcoin community, what I've noticed is people have gravitated towards the Bitcoin Treasury companies now. People who were former like Bitcoin maxis, they're like all in on MicroStrategy, or they're all in on the Meta Planet. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but these different companies, and it's kind of fragmented the community. And then there's still the hardcores who are like, screw all that, they're all shitcoins, that sort of attitude, even with MicroStrategy. But it's very interesting. So that's kind of a fragment of, I feel like it's sort of related, because I feel like all Meta Planet's at 7x the value of their Bitcoin, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think.
So it's a meme, is my point. That's like a meme community.
Yeah, and if you need to find a cause for some trouble down the line in a few months or whatever, I think that can well be the the cause.
I agree.
Too crazy. Definitely. At some point, it become too crazy. It's too leveraged. Like and we saw it countless times. Like with Luna, right? Anything that is too leveraged at some, like Celsius, at some point, unfortunately, it blows up. So.
Well, I was an investor in MicroStrategy. I got in at like $13-15, and then I sold it at $200 because the valuation doesn't make any sense anymore. So I bought it when the premium was like a 50% discount, something like that.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, that makes sense to me. But then they got to like a big premium. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. And then it blew up, and which was kind of frustrating. But what I realized is like this is not based on fundamentals at all anymore. This is purely a meme stock at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like it's a different way to outperform to some extent Bitcoin. Like everybody wants to outperform. Like I think what I was about to say earlier is that especially if you picture yourself in the shoes of like a person, like a millennial Gen Z as we are, I guess, in a few years, right? Especially post AI. Where essentially the value of labor and like given like the value is 100 now is like labor capital, but labor, it looks like a lot of labor is collapsing to close to zero. Capital is filling the gap, is collapsing to close to 100. Now, what do you do, right? What do you do? First off, I think is you may well be involved. Like assuming also that some of the most physical needs, like the basic needs, are to some extent taken care of. Like if this happens, it also means that to some extent there will be maybe some potential deflation of robotics. Assuming that some of the basic needs are taken care of, but people will have probably not a lot of money. So the only way out is to, if the labor in and of itself, the value of labor is low, it will probably to invest their way out of this, right? One of the only ways they have. The other way is to be human, right? If they don't have any specific knowledge that can outperform AI, maybe one of the kind of the consequences, it will make sense to actually join some community where basically, to be part of the community, to bring value to the community, you just need to be human, right? So that is almost the default, and then everybody will try to outperform inflation, outperform Bitcoin, right? Just to, I guess, try to make it. And then where do you invest?
Right.
I think not in TradFi financial markets. Why? Because like returns, they're basically not even in pace with inflation. I don't think Bitcoin will give you the answer, because again, like it's not gonna, you need at this point to make money with Bitcoin, you need a stack, like a big stack, right? If you want to make sizable money. So I think something that is, as I think they say, cost software. So there used to be, company was operational logistics, and then came software. Everybody was very happy. Oh, now this thing can grow very rapidly. Doesn't need any infrastructure, any logistics, any operation. Now it's even post software. There's not even the software. There's just a community, right? It's just a meme, an idea. So
right.
I think it will make a lot of sense to invest in something which almost invest in the intangible, which on the one end people can participate just by being human, and the other end is just probably if what we envision is right, is just going to outgrow everything else. So it's almost just a superior play, like game theoretically speaking.
Yeah, and you have a very technical way of looking at it, which is interesting. You've looked at the stats more. I'm very much, I just love the vibes, to be honest with you, and I love seeing it grow. And it's It's the. I mean, no disrespect to any other community. I own some other coins in other communities, but SPX is It's hard to deny. I mean, I think I was saying it's like trying to swim, against the tide. It's just, and if you looked at it and didn't know it, or if you started looking into it now, it's just hard to deny. Just you type in hashtag SPX6900 on X anywhere, it's everywhere, and it's so early. From an investment perspective, I think it's a pretty easy argument, and if you're just like, oh, I like the community, it's an easy argument. So it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Both qualitatively, I think the type of people,
yes,
the work that they do, the exam, I think to be honest, like the way I see it, is good people to be around with, right? So in general, I think it's part of the feed, the positivity, of course, the the adventure. I mean,
oh yeah, I went down a rabbit hole yesterday. I don't know if you've heard of Sam Hyde. Have you heard of that? He's like a podcaster, influencer in the alt media space.
No.
So I saw this video come up. I hadn't seen it before, and he was like, and it happened on June 18th when he did it. He's like, buy SPX6900, talking to some random streamer dude. And I was like, who's that streamer? I found the streamer. I messaged him. I said, is this real? As I was thinking maybe it was AI, because Sam Hyde's pretty popular. Like Joe Rogan knows of him. He's a popular dude.
Wow.
He's a pretty big voice. Like, is this real? I thought maybe somebody AI'd it, because whatever. And then I messaged him, and he's like, oh yeah, it's real. Yeah, and here's the video clip. So he sent me the original clip, and then I took the clip, got that, and then I found another interview. I went a little schizo yesterday. Then I found another clip with Sam talking a month ago about being a Bitcoin maxi. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I was kind of scanned through. And then he mentioned Murad.
Really?
Yeah. So I spliced that together with the SPX 6900, like showing, oh, you see. And if we could get him really talking about it, that would be amazing. So
that'd be amazing. Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, yeah, almost like I think that. No, obviously, whatever. I'm very even grateful that to be part of this, even as a global experiment. I think is very exciting. Like, this is a very exciting thing in crypto, and I think we haven't seen many of those for a long time. So I think it's a very interesting phenomenon, a very interesting experiment. The way I see this is that besides SPX. The Murad's thesis for Memecoins and tokenized communities, that's almost is like the bedrock, right?
Yeah.
If I think if almost I'm a big holder of SPX and I want the success and I believe in the success, but almost like I think there is something more fundamental here, which will enable SPX, but potentially in the future will even enable something else, which is really
absolutely.
This, convergence of different needs of people and potential of the technology, which basically if we wanted to do something like this 6-7 years ago, we maybe couldn't do it because like tokenization, building it wasn't as seamless as today. So it's a series of incentives that perhaps are creating some like a category, a completely new category, and even like the fact that I don't know if it's true, but I saw somebody saying that the Bloomberg raised the expectations of a Doge ETF like to 80, 90. I don't remember the name. I don't want to put a number, but like some it's crazy, like in and of itself, like so are we seeing like really a new category come like emerging?
I think absolutely. I think so.
This is like intellectually is also a lot more interesting that staking and restaking, impermanent, like all this bullshit. I don't care. I really don't. Like, and I've invested in many, like, it's not that I despise like the risk taking,
Sure.
but it doesn't, like,
It's not exciting at all.
Somebody else does it, but plus, if you do, one thing is the notion of it, and the other thing is, oh, by the way, buy the token, which is not even like remotely closed or remotely attached to the product, which will dump on you, right?
Yeah. You have such good, and I think Murad said this in some space recently. He was like, if you're in the token with a bunch of shitheads, they're gonna dump on you ASAP. And this has the best community. I think it really does lead to good, kind-hearted people. And I actually did another interview yesterday, but I haven't released it.
Oh, nice.
Or 2 days ago. And so I'm already on the fourth. This is fourth, technically. And right. I am just, the people are way beyond I could have imagined. You know what I mean? Like, when you're talking in text, you don't really get a good sense. But right. I'm really getting a good sense.
I mean, yeah. And for example, I think, like, to be honest, there are so many good people in crypto. Like, I've been part. This was way before. Like, it was I think 2023 or 2023. It was before Murad.
Yeah.
Like, I saw, but completely by chance, another little meme coin happening. But I think back there, like, you remember when it was complete BS. I got in almost by chance when Elon Musk bought Twitter and renamed Twitter as X.
Sure.
So, like, at that point, there were people
that happens all the time. Yeah.
X tokens, or whatever there were, 4 or 5. And I saw good people in one of these communities, because you could feel there were good people. Like, also the founder got, at some point, he doxed himself, and you saw it was a good, but there was no mission, no concept, it was a meme, but the meme, like, the lifespan of the meme was like 2 weeks, right?
Right.
So I think there are also a lot of good people on CT and in crypto in general.
Absolutely.
That are kind of lacking this vehicle.
Yeah.
To, vehicle, I mean, like, an existing great group of people, an existing mission, like the notion of an idea and a meme, like the ambition, the adventure. So they kind of lack perhaps the vehicle, and maybe at some point they will find it, right? So.
Right, yeah, there's other communities. Yeah, I know there's other strong communities. I just, particularly for me, SPX seems to have not just good people, like, just strong, dedicated people too. And I've been a part of other communities with good people for sure. It's just it's a whole other level in my opinion. But other people might disagree. But that's been my experience.
Yeah, me too. And it was interesting already to find people that I knew. Obviously, you meet online, you don't know who you're talking to, right?
Right.
But it happened already to me twice. That with 2 Aeons.
Wow.
That I knew them, from the past.
Really?
And then we talked, and then we had a call, whatever. Said, listen, like, this is crazy, this is happening, PBAs and so on.
I love that term, PBA, the public pure belief asset. That's a wonderful term.
So that's interesting. Like, you find, I mean, it happened a couple of times. I think who is, you need to be a bit crazy to like this or to get involved. Meaning, like, again, like, you need to abandon the mid curve placement, right? And you need to say, okay, how about
But you can use your mid curve abilities.
Right. So you need to go crazy. You need to go on the left or on the right, but, like,
yeah.
For lack of a better, no. So you need to be crazy. You need to be curious about without, like, too many constraints, right? Because because this is something really new, and so something new, you need to be. I'm talking as an investor, right? Like,
sure.
Or just go with the vibe. Go with the vibe for one.
Yeah.
just do it,
Yeah, it's if you
But
get
I'm
plugged
feeling,
in, it's so intoxicating and it's so much fun. I don't know, like if you're on X just posting, it's oh my god, I love it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love it, enjoy it.
And that's, I think, the value, even like, I don't know, um, I mean, without exaggeration, but like, a bad day, or,
Yeah,
something, we all have like kind of, problems or something, like we want to maybe, relieve some of the pressure, want to see something different, like you having a place where you get basically positivity. You actually, I think there is something powerful in taking action, whether it's building something for it, or even just retweeting, liking, like do something active. It's already active, right? So
right.
there is an activation there. And um and, and I don't know, something happens within you when you do some action. It kind of puts you in a different state.
Right, right. I absolutely agree. A couple more things. Any last or forgot about that. Who would you like to see interviewed next? I'm trying to ask everybody that.
Ha. I think, well, the guys doing the podcast, we're kind of here, from them, from the podcast. So maybe, um, definitely worth. I mean, it's our man. Well, Mike, Flip the Stocks,
I might
as you
already have
know.
them scheduled, maybe.
Oh, you have his schedule. Um, so many.
Yeah, it's so many. Yeah, I know. If you think of somebody, I do appreciate it. Just message me. That'll be cool. Cause
Yeah, yeah,
I've
me
already got
too.
a lot. It's insane, and so I don't really have an issue right now. But it's just good to have ideas. My
Yeah,
plan
and
is to have one a week. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, yeah, we need to find ways to kind of boost this channel, because I think there's a lot of good content. Also, it's a different format, right? So
yep.
maybe a podcast is a pod. Like this is more kind of longer form.
Yes.
Um, I think, yeah, no, we'll need to definitely boost it, because it's. I mean, the other interviews, they're were amazing. I really.
Yeah. Audacious impressed me. It was. I just and Seb was had that big personality. It's just crazy. And the one I did recently, I won't say who it is yet, but that was
Right.
impressive too. You were extremely impressive, very smart, way more than I
Also,
would have
I got
imagined.
the book like
Yeah.
recently, and like at the beginning, you never know. Like, I mean, have you ever bought one of these, self-published book,
Yeah,
and
it's
you open
bullshit.
it's
Yeah.
bullshit? To me, it happened almost like 99% of the time. I get one of these books is BS,
Right.
right? But I read it, and I was very surprised by.
Yeah, super easy to read. It's very quick and it is informative.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So
great.
it's, he did a good job. Very good.
Absolutely. I've actually seen a copycat guy come pop up, and I messaged Audacious like, yeah, this is bullshit. He's I don't remember what his name was, but I looked at it, it was like 40 pages and it made no sense. I'm pretty sure AI
Right.
wrote it or something. It was awful. But
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no. I mean, like closing. I was thinking. I was actually thinking this. Like, um, I don't know how to formulate this, but I think that at some point, or let's say this. Um, I think of meme coins, or this tokenized communities, almost as, given that they deal with the intangible, right? They reminds me of brands, right? So when I used to work in um, management consulting, whatever,
Sure.
TradFi, there was a big notion of brand equity, or what's the brand value of this? What's the brand value of Nike or Ferrari, or
Right.
whatever brand, right? So they kind of reminds me of brands, and some of them, some others, like for example, SPX is more of a movement and more of a GME to some extent. But like typically with a brand, you want to use, first off, like you don't use the brand, like either you're Nike or you don't use that brand, period. But even if you want to use it, right? I think if we were in 2020, and we would have said, oh, let's create a DAO and we license the brand and we get the brand right and all this nonsense bullshit, right? We would have said it. I think the iteration of this is actually say we create an open source brand. Let's say, for example, Apu, Giga, or SPX, and people would actually. I mean, I'm just talking here like communities in a general sense, not specifically to one or the other, but I think people will actually come and build on top of these brands, right? Whether it's theme parks, whether it's fitness brands, whether it's gyms in the case, or I think in the I'm saying this because Audacious, it's a small not small, but like it's an initial example of this. Like he created a book on top of XPX. Of course, the books gives it in revenue and we're all happy for it. You know, by doing this, it kind of benefits the community because we want now to onboard someone and we buy a book and we give it to him. So
yeah, and I'm promoting it and I put his link in the bottom and I'm helping him. It's a virtuous whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to. So but what I'm saying is they're almost like platforms to which again like people will build on top. In the case of SPX, I think it's to be seen what kind of products or what kind of things, right? I think, like, for example, I was thinking about the notion of Bitcoin. People, what was built on top of Bitcoin? Well, at the beginning, you know, Antonopoulos, he wrote books, and then the conferences, and then, I know, exchanges, right? Back then, like all the BitMEX and all the initial exchanges, because people wanted Bitcoin and wanted to trade, not everything else. They wanted Bitcoin, they wanted to trade. So I think, you know, this one, I see this happening with also these communities. And for example, the book is one example, which is end-to-end, right, of kind of building already something on top of this open source brand. Yep. Which, you know, benefits who does it. It benefits the brand. It benefits the community. It benefits everybody.
Right, and I'm not the best podcaster whatever in the world. I'm just they don't exist. There's no supply, and there's tons of demand for people to watch it. And it's doing well, and I think there's gonna be more and more of those popping up. Yep, and it's yeah, it's going to continue to grow. And I enjoy doing it, so it's really cool. I guess I'm sort of an example of that too, building on the brand in a way.
Absolutely, no, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, and you made those websites which are cool, and yeah, it's just it's crazy.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is like, you know, there is the contribution, but at some point I think there will also be like I was mentioning the book, but because it has a price tag. Right, which I think it makes it an interesting experiment to say. Yeah, it's almost like a business built on top, and I think there will be, you know, if this thing continue like SPX and more in general like tokenized communities, people will invent potentially. I think so. People will invent like businesses that leverage the brand in an open source way, which benefits the brand, the holders themselves. It benefits kind of every. And I think, you know, when the people say, "Oh, this is," you know, the closest thing to also DAOs, right? What DAOs were supposed to be. I really, and this is a slightly different angle, but I also very much agree. If you ever been to a DAO,
I agree. I remember those were big, and yeah, this is it. This is what that was. It's not labeled as such. It doesn't have all those fancy labels.
There's no treasury. There's no bullshit. There is no board. There is no voting. There is none of this BS. And especially because there is none of this BS, this is really, you know, open source creation of something, of a brand, of something intangible that then I think people and participants will leverage to build, perhaps even on top.
Yeah, and I think it even applies to Bitcoin and, yeah, like you're saying, Ethereum too. That was kind of the same thing in a way. It just, I don't know if it was thought of that way, but yeah, it's just crazy. It's really cool though. Did you have anything else you'd like to say, or any last thoughts?
Study SPX, man. I mean,
That's a good
probably
thought.
if they got till this point, I think they
Maybe they get it,
acquainted
or they're
but
just
I
an
think
Aeon.
no, or maybe just yeah, just I would think that if because like any meme coin, ultimately I see them as you know as a codified culture, a codified vibe, right? So not every meme will. It's almost like the meme will self-select the people that attracts to, right? So not every meme resonates with every people, but I think for the people that kind of resonates with this vibe of financial rebellion in general. Uh, Taking part to the community and seeing what's going on will really most likely benefit them. They will find a welcoming place and so I would really recommend to people to check out the and to participate in the community if they like um, because it's something very unique.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if you've made it this far, and thanks for your last thoughts, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find Aeon Reborn's X account link below, and I'll include any other links to the websites and other relevant information. Until next time, persist forever, Aeons.